Hey friends, welcome back to Uncommon Roots Homestead. I am Ashley, and today I am going to be tackling our production tomatoes. We have three things we need to do today: water, harvest, prune / deal with our production tomatoes. So the reason it's a little bit late in the season, obviously it's late July. Normally whatever's happening with tomatoes, I would just let happen at this point. But the problem is that our production tomatoes are so out of control that I can't even see the fruit that's ready. So we have San Marzanos, which are a determinate variety. We're gonna just lightly prune those. And then we have Big Boys, which are an indeterminate variety that I am going to just go to town on and try to get to a point where we can at least see the fruit that's being produced, because it's a little bit wild. I talked about it in one of my other videos, but it's time to get it under control. So I'm gonna start over there back with the tomatoes. Kevin is gonna start with watering. He's gonna join me over in the tomatoes, and then we'll take you on a little bit of a harvest. So let's do it. Also, you'll notice that today I wore my long sleeves because I do get contact dermatitis in the garden. I'm a little bit allergic to some of the things, so I always end up itching. So today I came prepared. It is also like 95 degrees, so great day. Look at these dahlias. Oh my goodness, they are all so stunning. There's so many. Honestly, I do not even know where to start. Do you see the squash? The squash is like climbing up. This is quite the undertaking. There is just so much happening here. And like, these plants are so massive. Do you see that? The best way to start, you guys wanted to see how I was gonna deal with this. The best way to start is to just jump in and do it. So I think my tomatillos are here. I think I'm going to just jump in right here. You can see where the tomatoes have actually caused the structure to fall over that they were leaning on. There's a lot of really big fruit in there. And I'm seeing a lot of ripe fruit in here too. This one looks like it's split a little. Make it out here. I'm gonna bring a harvest basket over. Look how loaded these are. Do you see this? So much fruit, but so much jungle. So much jungle. This is a note to future me. Don't let this happen. Why did I let this happen? Ugh. Okay, so I'm sitting here trying to find the way to basically do surgery on these plants to get them back into control. And the more I look at them and I see the fruit that's set, the more I'm starting to think that maybe this is not the right approach, and that maybe the right approach is rolling up my sleeves and getting in there and harvesting everything I can, figuring out what is going to be harvested soon, kind of like take inventory of everything that's happening here, and then just checking on these things all the time, because trying to even figure out how I'm going to give these more airflow without cutting off a substantial amount of fruit is just not seeming like it's going to be a thing. Sorry, those were bad. I'm going to go get Kevin and see what he thinks. Okay, so I've showed Kevin the situation. My thoughts and what I was just telling our friends is that this is kind of past the point of pruning into control, because every time I start to look at an area and think I'm going to prune it, I find a ton of fruit that's already set and growing on that section. So I'm kind of thinking that our best way forward is just to like really dig in and harvest any and everything that can be harvested, taking anything off like what you were just looking at that's got the blossom end rot, like cleaning up that way. Yeah, that's the blossom end rot. We got a pile for the pigs, but I don't think this is like prunable at this point. without losing a ton of fruit. Like, I'm not sure that it's worth the amount of effort it's gonna take for us to get this into submission without losing, like, with how much fruit we're gonna lose.
I'd burn it all down. Start over. Just kidding.
No, you wouldn't.
No, we can, yeah, let's harvest it. Oh, hi. Harvest it and then prune what we can, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, so once you're done watering, you want to come help me harvest everything we can. Look at this one. This has been like eaten by something. Like, you see that?
We would have no way of knowing.
Like, yeah, it's so hard. And see all those red ones down there? Oh yeah, something in there. Don't put it in that one.
I'm putting it in the discard.
This is a nightmare.
It's our nightmare.
It's our nightmare.
We did this.
So, change of plans. I am gonna go ahead and harvest all of this, and then we're gonna see how we can clean it up. All right, so we have done we've done a lot of work here. You can barely tell, but we did. It started pretty bad. But you can see, look at this clear pathway now. It's great. We got a bunch of tomatoes that we're ready to harvest. That's our pig pile, so those ones had like pest damage. But all of these were totally fine. Much less lost fruit than I thought we were gonna have. What about you, Kev?
Yeah, not bad. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking about next season. So I don't know why, but I didn't prioritize these production beds as much as I did all of my other tomatoes. So we are getting into August. It's the last week of July. This is about the time that we start dealing with pests and disease in a lot of our tomato plants anyways. So we're losing fruit everywhere. But what I didn't take into account is that because we didn't take care of these, it's just like that much worse. But it could be way worse than it is, but we could be getting way more than we are. So it's one of those things that, you know, if you're taking a little bit more of a relaxed approach to gardening, this is going to happen, right? You're going to neglect something that you probably shouldn't have neglected, and it's going to result in less fruit than you could have gotten. Now, I, in hindsight, wish that I would have taken the time that I spent pruning some of my other more novelty tomatoes and put it here, because these are the tomatoes that offer us more value. These are the tomatoes that are going to become tomato sauce and feed the family through the winter. So, you know, had we had just a little bit more foresight, we probably would have spent our time differently, but we're still going to get a ton of fruit. These aren't, you threw that at me. These are not all lost. We are definitely going to get a lot of fruit. There's a ton of healthy fruit that is just waiting to ripen. And so what we're going to do is just continue to do what Kevin is doing and just prune as much as we can, try to thread those branches back up so that they're not hanging into the walkway. And then we'll just be back out here every couple of weeks doing this again, harvesting, digging deep into the middle of these plants, and pruning a little bit more. And honestly, with the amount of extra work that we have to do now in order to get the amount of fruit that we need to get, it would have saved us time to just take care of these in the beginning. So we'll treat it as an experiment. You wanted to know what would happen if you didn't touch your tomatoes? This is what happens. And the reality is, yes, they set so much fruit, but you can't find it. And so it gets eaten by bugs and it rots on the vine. And that's probably the worst feeling. What do you think?
That's the worst feeling?
Yeah, when you go to grab a huge tomato and it's got a huge hole in it.
Yeah. Or the back pain.
He's not complaining at all. Kevin did point out that I gave him such a hard time for topping a few of these tomato plants. He said he probably should have just topped them all and saved us some time.
Would have helped.
Also, somehow we have no harvest baskets here right now. I mean, no, we have some. We have these tiny ones, but people wonder why I have so many baskets. This is why. Where are they? Where have my baskets gone? Then you have kids. Your baskets run away. Okay, so like I was saying, we're getting into August, where it's the very end of July. And so this is the time of year that everything in the garden really starts to feel the heat of the summer. So we see a lot of like vine borer damage, a lot of our squash and cucumbers and melons start to die back. Our tomatoes start to get sick or feel pest pressure as well. And so August is really a transition season for us, where we start pulling out some plants that really have seen better days, trying to harvest the last fruit off of those, and then we start planting for our fall garden. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how I'm planning for the fall garden here in just a couple days. But for now, I need to go through and do a big harvest and kind of take inventory of what plants look like they're going to be okay and which plants look like, you know, maybe they're towards the end of their life, so that when I go sit down to try to plan for the fall garden, I have a better idea of what space I'm going to have. And one of the things that we found is really helpful, because we do, you know, we're busy and we don't have a lot of time to spend in the garden doing these things. We, like Kevin was saying, end up not infrequently in positions like we are with those production tomatoes, where we're trying to work really fast to fix a problem we probably should have fixed to begin with. And one of the areas that catches up with us is in clearing out the beds. You know, if we were to just be done with the season today and not touch any of this and just go into winter with all of these beds full, we are creating quite the project come spring. And so we want to save our future selves by being hyper aware of what plants need to come out when, so that we're kind of clearing beds out as we go versus waiting for this one big cleanup, which with a garden this size is really taxing. There's just not a ton of time to do that. So we are trying to take inventory, kind of get an idea of where we want to put our fall plants, because anything that we plant in the fall, like our garlic and our onions and some of our brassicas, those will be here through next spring. And so those beds are kind of accounted for. And then as things die back in places that we're not going to replant, we'll just mulch those so that they are prepared to be amended in the spring, but clean. We're going to try to leave the garden clean this year. That's our goal. So I am going to go with my 2 tiny baskets and harvest what I can. So Kevin and I were just chatting. I ran out of baskets, so I got to the cherry tomatoes and the bell peppers. That's all I got to. But Kevin and I were just chatting, and I said, I feel like summer is simultaneously my favorite and my least favorite season. And I think that for me, that's because it's just so busy. Like, this is what we worked for all season. But now it's like so exhausting to actually like harvest. Like, it's when you, in the fall, I always dream of this big lush garden, and I dream of carrying my baskets through and collecting all of this food and bringing it in to eat and like going out and just collecting a meal. But the reality is, yes, you can do that. We can come to the garden, collect things we need for a meal. But the reality is there are pounds and pounds of food ready every time we harvest. So it's not just like, oh, I can grab 1 tomato and some basil and that's all I have to harvest. It's like the harvest is so overwhelming sometimes, and it's a good thing, but then it also means that every couple days we're processing food, and you know, like, you just have to keep on top of that, which is exhausting. And so as much as I love and look forward to the season, it's also a season that's really tiring for me. And Kevin was saying that for him it was different. What were you saying?
Well, we were talking about like the pros and cons of the season, and the pros are like, yeah, we get food, which is awesome, but going along with what you're saying, it's just like a constant reminder of like what you could do better every time we're here.
Like what we should have done.
Yeah. I mean, we can say all the excuses we want, but there's things we can do better.
Yeah, like ultimately, regardless of everything else, we didn't take care of our production tomatoes, so.
You know, and that's planning and neglecting that were issues. So that's on us, but.
And there's some of that every season, right? Like it's not, I don't think it's ever perfect, but I hadn't thought about it. When Kevin said it's like the reason that it's his favorite and least favorite, the reason it's his least favorite is because it's a constant reminder of how we could have been better. And I had never really thought about it like that, but it is, because every time something is dying or, you know, a new pest moves in that we didn't get on top of or ahead of, it's a reminder that like we could have done, like you can't go back and redo it at that point. And it's kind of like, especially with an annual garden, it's magnified because it's like, okay, this is our one shot. These plants die. Like we don't have enough time in the season to start over.
No, we don't.
It would be so stressful to be a production farmer. I think it
Why
gives
we
me,
don't do it.
I know, true. I think it gives me more respect though for production farmers and for people who are, you know, market gardening or doing this for a living, because there is so much that we don't think about when we go to the grocery store and we like pick up a tomato, or we go to the farmer's market even and pick up a tomato. We don't really think about all of the work that went in before that tomato even hit the table. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've talked about it a lot, how part of the reason we do what we do is to understand the sacrifice that goes into, you know, everything. And it's not just like the sacrifice you make when you process an animal. It's the sacrifice you make when you come out here at 9 p.m. and are harvesting all these vegetables, or watering, or pruning back our monstrous hedge of tomatoes. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. So same thing for...
Yeah, it's all just appreciating the sacrifice that comes with sustaining ourselves.
Indeed. Not that hard to drive to the store and grab a tomato.
No, and just pretend. Yeah, and to pretend that nothing went into that, right? And it's just not real. But I love it. As all of that to say, we aren't complaining. This is by no means complaining. This is not complaining. We're learning, and we're hopefully encouraging you all to see that like it's not all perfect, and we still choose to do this, right? Like there's every year we're going to lose certain crops, or we're, you know, going to neglect something, or life is going to get busy, but we're still like, we've still harvested so much food out of this space and learned so much about ourselves and about growing food.
Lose a little, learn a lot.
Lose a little, learn a lot.
Every year.
Every year. I'm going to continue harvesting.
I'm going to go fall in the grass.
Deal. Figured before we call it a day, I'd bring all of these bad tomatoes that we picked down to the pigs. So I'm going to turn off the fence so they don't accidentally hit it. We're going to give them a treat. You want a treat? Come over here. You like tomatoes? Not all's lost, huh? I actually think I am going to call it a day as well. There's still a lot to be harvested and a lot to do. I need to finish harvesting my peppers, and I need to dive back into my squash, but I think I'm at a good pausing point, and I don't have any more baskets, so I'm gonna wait and grab some baskets. All that being said, I hope that watching us kind of stumble through this gardening season in this year of transition for us is encouraging to you, that you're not striving for perfection. We're not striving for perfection. We're striving to grow food, and we want to share our journey with you and hopefully learn together as we're building our homestead and building our garden and really perfecting this craft. So thank you for joining us today. You always have a place in my garden. Until next time.